All right. My name is Mike Uzina of Menorcan Magic Handmade Cast Nets, and I'm here in the old ancient city of St. Augustine, Florida. And I want to talk to you today because I think a lot of people really don't have any idea of the history of fishing nets and then fishing nets in general. Phil and I go to places around, talking to people, a lot of tourists, and you'd be surprised at how many people in their 60s have no idea that fishing nets were once made totally by hand. That is webbing. All webbing nets were made by hand. They thought you just went to a store and bought a net like they do now, but that is not so. So we'll go into some of the history. We go back. Webbing, remnants of webbing have carbon dated back 20,000 years. And we're going to go on, come forward a bit to 10,000 years when actually the first net, the early nets were seines. And your early nets were made out of reeds, barks, grasses, flax, whatever they could find to put into twine that they could to make nets with. That's what they used. So the first net that they really knew was a net, I could say, was about 10,000 years ago. It was found in a dried up lake bed, and they found enough the remnants of it to know, in fact, that it was a fishing net. Now, your cast nets didn't come into play till some 5,000 years later. About 5,000 years ago, your Egyptians started using cast nets. There's been complete nets found in Egyptian tombs that date 5,000 years. They drawings on the walls, of fishing nets. So we know that pretty much that we get cast nets about that far. Now, as we come forward in time, the cast nets pretty much have been the same, exception of improvements. Now, the Polynesians, we feel that were the first ones to take and make the major change to a net. Your early cast nets was simply a net that you would cast into the water, didn't have a hand line on it, didn't have braille lines to bag it, to make a bag. You would cast the net into the water, and you'd have the fisherman would have to dive down, remove the fish from under the net, or fold it up into a pouch and lift it into the boat or onto the land. Now that went on for some time, and to the point of the Polynesians feel like about 1,000 years ago, as best I can research and find, that the Polynesians put the net as you know it today, and that is a net that has the lead line of lead, that has the braille lines, and a horn and a swivel and a hand line. So that's pretty much we know that. Now the dates that I want to give you some dates that really revolutionized fishing as we know it. Now the first date being 1939, when DuPont Company patented synthetic material. Now, synthetic material, we know what that is. That's your plastics, your poly, your nylon, rayon, Dacron. DuPont had a vision of, and it wasn't about cast nets, I can tell you. His original reason for the synthetic material, for nylon in particular, was to make stockings for ladies. Ladies like to cover their legs, and they were a hit. They flew off the shelf. So, and then everything's going well. This is, like I say, in the late 1930s, and what happens in 1941? Along comes the war. Well, the war changed everything in reference to what you could buy and what you couldn't buy, what you could find, you couldn't find. All of your materials were taken up for the war effort. I'm talking about brass, copper, lead, steel, your fabrics, everything was taken up for the war effort. And that went along until the war ends in 1945, And so things start to settle down into a normal pattern. And I got involved. I was old enough, probably about 48 or 49. I started got involved in making. My father taught me how to make cast nets, and we were still making them out of cotton that late. But it was long about the early 50s when nylon twine started showing up. Wasn't real good, but it didn't take it long for them to improve that, and we started making nylon cast nets as opposed to the cotton. Cotton was a terrible maintenance issue. It would shrink if you didn't wash it and dry it. When you used it, it was going to rot on you. So it wasn't a very good stuff to use. And of course, before that was linen. Linen was probably the same way. Linen's made out of flax. Flax grows in the Mediterranean. Linen's still being used for clothing today. But we're going back to the cast nets, and we took and we started making nets out of the nylon. But there's some dates coming up again. I told you the first date was 1939. The second one that you really don't want to forget this one, because this revolutionized the fishing netting industry as we know it today, and that would have been 1952. Prior to 1952, all webbing, whatever kind of webbing it may have been, netting of all sorts, fish nets of all sorts, was made by hand. The Japanese in 1952 patented the first webbing machine. They started making webbing with a machine. And they made it out of nylon. They made it out of monofilament. And it didn't take the fishermen long to figure out how to take and cut panels out of that flat webbing in pie shape. They first started making them pie shape, and they would sew them together and make a net. It was much faster. They could make the nets much bigger, and more important to them, it was cheaper. So that's what happened. Now your monofilament, forget it. You could not make a net out of monofilament back then, because it was like wire. I can remember they used to put monofilament on reels to fish with, and you try to cast it, and all it do is backlash. That was bad. But again, the third date I want to tell you about that is going to put you where we are today, and that is 1959. Again, we're talking about the DuPont company. They improved monofilament to a much softer, more pliable material, and they call it serene. And that's where we are now, where they make all your monofilament nets that you see, handmade, store-bought nets today. You can buy nets at Walmart's, and every place under the sun sells them now. And you can buy a Chinese net. If I sell handmade nylon and Dacron nets, I have to get, for the cost of the material, I have to get $350 for a 7-foot nylon net. You can buy a Chinese store-bought monofilament net probably for $50 or less, but then you just see what you get. The store-bought nets simply, they won't last as long. They won't open near as good. They won't fish as well, and just it's hard to convince people of that fact. But it's what it is. But I think we've pretty well covered everything. I don't know. The important dates were 39, 52, and 59. Those are the three dates that revolutionized the fishing industry. And with all of that said, I have a website that you can look up. I have some other videos on YouTube that you might find on making cast nets. Phil and I made cast net sinkers, and we've done sewing sinkers on a net and different things that you might find that will help you along if you're interested in making a net by hand. I have a cast net making video that's available, and you can find us on Monorcan.com, and that is MENORCAN one word, .com. That's our website that you might find, and again, we're on YouTube. And I hope the information I've given you it is factional, and I do hope that you'll find it interesting and get something out of it. And with that said, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.